welcome to the Nifty Noon podcast.
Hey, great to be here for this one.
Yeah, and imagine watching a sprawling city being built, right? And then it gets stress tested by a massive earthquake, wired up for artificial intelligence, and seamlessly integrated into the global grid, all within, like, a single week.
Right, which sounds impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Usually when we look at the traditional financial ecosystem, changes of that magnitude take, decades.
Absolutely, decades at least.
But in the digital asset space, that was literally just the last 5 days.
Yeah, it's a compressed evolutionary cycle. I mean, we are watching foundational infrastructure being deployed at breakneck speed.
Right.
And it's constantly colliding with, well, both malicious actors trying to break it and traditional regulatory frameworks trying to, contain it.
Which is exactly why we are taking this deep dive today. We're pulling the daily news source straight from our newsletter to give you a clear TLDR on the week's most dominant themes.
And there's a lot to cover.
There really is. So theme 1, a massive stress test of decentralized finance that proved the ecosystem's immune system is actually, finally, maturing.
Yeah, that was a wild start to the week.
Theme 2, giant leaps in infrastructure. We're talking autonomous AI agents getting their own wallets and Ethereum building a literal shield against quantum computers.
A huge development.
And theme 3, the ongoing collision between crypto and traditional finance. That ranges from new regulatory hurdles in Washington to a groundbreaking crypto-backed real estate loan.
And, to truly understand how these developments impact the broader market, we cannot view them in isolation.
Right, they're all connected.
Exactly. A vulnerability exposed on Monday perfectly sets the stage for the institutional adoption we saw by Friday.
So we are going to walk through this week chronologically, unpacking the cause and effect of each day's biggest story.
Sounds good.
Let's kick things off with a chaotic opening to the week, March 23rd, and the Resolv Labs heist.
Yeah, so Resolv Labs suffered a catastrophic exploit, forcing a complete pause of their protocol. And it resulted in an estimated $23 million to $25 million loss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The scale of the attack was alarming, but the underlying mechanics of how it was executed, that's what really demands attention.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer leverage the attacker achieved is just staggering to me.
It really is.
They deposited just $200,000 in USDC, right?
Correct. Just 200 grand.
But they exploited a timing vulnerability between step 1, which is initiating the deposit, and step 2, verifying the collateral.
Right. They essentially found a gap in the logic.
Yeah, they basically hit the pause button on the verification clock while hitting the print button on the USR tokens.
Yeah.
So they used that 200 grand to mint 80 million unbacked tokens.
Which is just an insane multiplier.
Totally. And then they took those 80 million fake tokens straight to decentralized exchanges like, Curve and Uniswap and just aggressively dumped them.
Yeah, and that sudden massive oversupply crashed the USR peg from $1 all the way down to 2.5 cents.
2.5 cents. That's practically zero.
Yeah, and a drop to 2.5 cents immediately triggers a race among arbitrageurs trying to liquidate collateral.
Right.
Which is where the real systemic risk usually begins. When a stablecoin depegs that violently, the panic just cascades across the whole system.
This sounds like a counterfeiter walking into a casino, exploiting a glitch at the cashier's desk to print millions in fake chips, and then just cashing them out at the cage before security even blinks.
That is actually a really good analogy.
But if 80 million fake chips were printed and cashed out, how did the actual vault not get drained? The reporting clearly shows the core collateral remained completely safe.
What's fascinating here is the absolute isolation of the damage. The flaw existed entirely in the issuance mechanics, the printing press, to use your analogy.
Okay.
The attacker found a way to manipulate the state updates during the minting process without putting corresponding assets into the vault. However, the logic guarding the vault itself held firm. The underlying collateral pool backing the legitimate USR remained entirely intact.
Which means the actual financial losses were absorbed by the liquidity providers on those decentralized exchanges.
Exactly.
The automated market makers were inadvertently trading real hard assets for the unbacked fake USR tokens before anyone sounded the alarm.
Yeah, it is a really harsh blow for those specific liquidity providers.
Definitely.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the true takeaway from March 23rd isn't just the exploit itself, it's the speed of the containment.
Right, because it didn't take down everything else.
Exactly. PeckShield, the blockchain security firm, they detected the anomalous large-scale minting events almost instantly.
Wow.
Within incredibly short time frames, major DeFi protocols like Arav and Lido, they isolated their exposure to USR entirely. They severed the bridges.
So they basically locked the blast doors.
Yes. In previous years, an exploit like this would have cascaded through secondary lending markets, causing billions in forced liquidations. Here, the threat was quarantined.
The immune system successfully identified the pathogen and isolated it.
Precisely.
So human developers spent Monday patching those vulnerabilities to protect human capital. But the infrastructure deployed on Tuesday revealed how the industry is preparing to hand those very same financial keys over to non-humans.
Yeah. The launch of the Open Wallet Standard, or OWS, by MoonPay on March 24th.
Right.
This is a massive paradigm shift for the AI agent economy.
They released OWS under an MIT license, making it completely open source.
Right.
This framework allows AI agents to securely hold assets, sign transactions, and make payments across multiple blockchains. We are talking EVM-compatible chains, meaning networks that share Ethereum's core code as well as Solana and Bitcoin.
Yep, full cross-chain functionality.
And it does this without ever exposing the private keys to the large language models themselves.
And that cryptographic separation is paramount. I mean, if an AI's underlying language model has direct access to a wallet's private keys, it is highly susceptible to prompt injection attacks or social engineering.
Oh, like someone tricking the AI?
Exactly. A malicious user could literally talk the AI into handing over the keys.
That would be a disaster.
A total disaster.
Yeah.
So OWS solves this by creating an isolated, secure environment. The language model generates the intent, for example, like by server space, but the OWS translates that intent into a signed transaction without the AI ever touching the core cryptography.
I have to push back a little here, though.
Sure.
I understand the security isolation, but we're essentially giving our Roombas a cross-chain credit card.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
What is the actual practical use case for an AI needing its own wallet, and why does it require an entirely new standard backed by major corporations?
Well, the agent economy right now is severely fragmented. If you're a developer building an autonomous AI agent that needs to, say, pay for API calls, scrape data behind paywalls, or execute algorithmic trades, you have to custom build the wallet integration for every single blockchain you want it to interact with.
Oh, I see. That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. OWS creates a universal plug-and-play foundational layer, and the backing is what signals the real market shift.
Right, the corporate sponsors.
Exactly. This has the support of over 15 major industry players, including PayPal, Circle, and the Ethereum and Solana foundations.
Wow. When heavyweights like PayPal and Circle get involved, they are clearly betting that the future total addressable market for financial transactions extends far beyond human beings.
They're looking at a web where AI agents don't just generate text or images. They autonomously negotiate, form microcontracts, and transact value with other agents across different networks to achieve whatever goal you've assigned them.
But an autonomous AI agent cannot operate a frictionless cross-chain economy using highly volatile meme coins, right?
No, definitely not.
It needs stable, liquid digital dollars, which makes the regulatory hammer that dropped on Wednesday an existential threat to this whole OWS framework.
Yeah, the leaked draft of the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act on March 25th.
Exactly.
The foundation of this new agent economy, stablecoins, is now under intense scrutiny in Washington.
And we should explicitly note, for you listening, the political maneuvering around this bill is highly polarized.
Very polarized.
We are strictly looking at the mechanics of the legislation and the market's reaction without taking a side on whether this is good or bad policy.
Right, just sticking to the facts.
Exactly. The core provision driving the debate is a strict prohibition on digital asset service providers offering passive yield on stablecoin balances.
Yeah, the draft explicitly bans any rewards that are, quote, economically or functionally equivalent to interest from a traditional bank deposit.
So no passive income.
Right. If you hold a stablecoin in a wallet or on an exchange, you cannot be paid a percentage yield simply for providing liquidity. However, the bill does leave the door open for activity-based incentives, such as user loyalty programs or rewards tied to platform transactions.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
It sounds like they are saying you cannot have a savings account that pays interest, but you can earn frequent flyer miles for swiping the debit card.
that's a perfect way to look at it.
But isn't economic equivalence an incredibly vague standard? Like, how do you legally define the line between an activity reward and an interest payment in a decentralized protocol.
That ambiguity is exactly what is tearing the industry apart right now. The market implication was immediate, with Circle's token, CRCL, falling roughly 15% on the news.
15%. Wow.
Yeah, and the industry is effectively split into two camps. The pragmatists see this as a necessary compromise.
How so?
Well, to get traditional banking on board and to prevent the SEC from classifying stablecoins as unregistered banking products, they argue you just have to give up passive yield.
Okay, I can see that.
Preserving activity-based incentives is viewed as a victory that keeps the operational wheels turning.
They view it as taking the win to ensure survival.
Exactly.
But the skeptics look at the phrase economically or functionally equivalent to interest and see a regulatory Trojan horse.
Yeah, they fear that vague language empowers future regulators to arbitrarily crack down on any crypto platform.
Right.
If a decentralized protocol issues a governance token to users for providing liquidity to a pool, a regulator might suddenly decide that token is functionally equivalent to interest and shut the whole thing down.
Which is terrifying for builders.
Absolutely. It is the fear of regulation by enforcement continuing under a new guise.
All eyes in both traditional finance and the digital asset space will be on the Senate Banking Committee markup in late April.
Definitely.
Because if institutional capital is going to flow into this space, there has to be legal clarity.
100%.
But while Washington debates the regulatory survival of stablecoins in the present, developers on Thursday were forced to declare war on an existential threat to the cryptographic bedrock itself in the future.
Yeah, March 26th brought a monumental technical announcement.
The quantum stuff.
Yes. The Ethereum Foundation launched the peq.ethereum.org resource hub. It's detailing a dedicated public roadmap to make the entire Ethereum network quantum resistant by the year 2029.
The threat model here revolves around a cryptographically relevant quantum computer.
Right.
But if a machine capable of breaking modern encryption doesn't even exist yet, isn't this like building a multi-billion-dollar bunker for an alien invasion that might never happen? Why the massive rush to hit a 2029 deadline?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the urgency is entirely justified by a strategy known as store now, decrypt later.
Store now, decrypt later.
Yeah. State actors and highly sophisticated hacking syndicates are currently harvesting vast amounts of encrypted data across the internet.
Even though they can't read it.
Exactly. They cannot read it today. But they're storing it, anticipating that a quantum computer will eventually run Shor's algorithm, breaking standard elliptic curve cryptography.
Wow.
The moment that happens, every traditional signature on the blockchain is compromised.
Meaning, if someone simply knows your public wallet address, a quantum computer could theoretically reverse engineer your private key and drain your funds instantly.
Precisely. And migrating a live, decentralized global protocol is nothing like pushing a software update to your smartphone.
I can imagine.
It is more like trying to change the locks on millions of safety deposit boxes simultaneously, while customers are actively putting money inside without accidentally locking anyone out.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It requires years of coordination, deep engineering, and rigorous formal verification. Thousands of independent node operators around the world must upgrade simultaneously without breaking the consensus mechanism.
To solve this, the roadmap shows the Ethereum team is building snark-based signature solutions.
Yes, snarks.
And snarks are zero-knowledge proofs, meaning they allow the network to verify a transaction happened without having to process the heavy data of the transaction itself.
Which is vital for a blockchain. Other quantum-safe cryptographic alternatives require massive amounts of data. If you implement bulky cryptographic signatures, you bloat the network, slow down processing times, and drive transaction fees through the roof.
Nobody wants that.
Exactly. Snarks keep the data footprint incredibly small while maintaining quantum-level security.
They are targeting standard Ethereum wallets first to protect the everyday user, followed by high-value operational wallets tied to major exchanges and custody providers.
Right.
By taking these performance-heavy, complex technical hurdles head-on today, Ethereum is signaling to massive asset managers that it is a durable, future-proof platform.
It is entirely about institutional trust. If you want traditional finance to migrate trillions of dollars on-chain, you must mathematically prove the chain won't be broken by the next leap in computing power.
Future-proofing digital wealth for the next decade is essential. But Friday, March 27th, showed a massive leap in how that digital wealth can be deployed in the physical world today.
Oh, this was huge. The partnership between Coinbase and Better in finance. This is arguably the most tangible bridge between digital assets and traditional finance. we have seen yet a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage product.
Buyers can now pledge their Bitcoin or USDC as collateral for a home down payment.
Right.
Historically, if you had significant wealth in Bitcoin and wanted to buy real estate, you had to sell your digital assets for fiat currency.
And selling triggers a massive taxable event. You forfeit a huge percentage of your wealth to capital gains taxes.
Which hurts.
It really does. Furthermore, you lose your market position. If Bitcoin goes on a massive run the following year, you miss out entirely because your capital is locked up in drywall and foundation.
Right.
This product allows buyers to pledge the asset without liquidating it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This is the ultimate diamond hands play.
It really is.
Under a typical decentralized finance loan, if the price of your collateral drops suddenly, you get a margin call.
Yep.
If Bitcoin drops 20%, the smart contract automatically liquidates your holdings to cover the loan. Applying that volatility to a 30-year mortgage sounds terrifying.
It would be.
So what is the catch for the average listener who might want to use this?
The catch is that it operates exactly like traditional real estate, not like DeFi. There are no margin calls based on the price of Bitcoin dropping.
Wait, no margin calls in crypto?
Nope. If Bitcoin drops 50%, the lender accepts that the collateral is temporarily worth less as long as you continue to pay your monthly fiat mortgage payment.
Okay, wow.
Liquidations of the crypto collateral only happen after a 60-day payment delinquency.
That is a massive distinction.
Yeah.
If you don't pay your monthly mortgage for 2 months, they liquidate the crypto. But as long as you make your monthly payment, Bitcoin's daily price action doesn't threaten your home.
Right.
You get to live in the house,
Right.
but you also retain the potential future upside of your Bitcoin portfolio.
And this raises an important question about the broader normalization of digital assets. By structuring this to mimic traditional home loans and securing Fannie Mae backing, the traditional financial sector is officially acknowledging Bitcoin as a legitimate collateral asset on par with traditional equity.
That's a huge milestone.
It is. It allows a massive wave of crypto-native wealth to seamlessly enter the real estate market without forcing those individuals to sacrifice their carefully built portfolios.
It's the ultimate merging of on-chain assets with the physical world.
Absolutely.
So, looking back the entire week chronologically, the cause and effect narrative is undeniable. Let's do a rapid-fire synthesis of the week's sources.
Let's do it.
I think the clearest example of what was ultimately just noise this week was the panic over the Resolv Labs USR stablecoin dropping to 2.5 cents.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was a severe stress test, absolutely. But the underlying collateral was mathematically safe, and the decentralized ecosystem proved its maturity by quarantining the threat immediately.
What truly mattered was the relentless march of infrastructure.
For sure.
From AI agents getting their own secure open wallet standard to individuals securing Fannie Mae-backed mortgages with Bitcoin. The bridges connecting crypto, artificial intelligence, and traditional finance are no longer theoretical whiteboard concepts.
Oh, they're officially built, tested, and operational.
Moving forward, the critical metric to watch is the regulatory fallout.
Yeah, the Senate Banking Committee's markup of the Clarity Act in late April will be the next major hurdle.
Right.
It will dictate the future of stablecoin yield and determine how seamlessly institutional capital can actually utilize all this newly built infrastructure.
We started this deep dive talking about a sprawling city being built, stress-tested, and wired up all at once. Nothing represents that better than the collision of these specific technologies.
I will leave you with a final thought to mull over, actually.
Okay, let's hear it.
We saw on Tuesday that AI agents can now legally and securely hold their own cross-chain crypto wallets through OWS.
Right.
And we saw on Friday that those exact same crypto wallets can now be used to secure a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
So
Yeah.
how far are we really from an autonomous AI agent legally owning a piece of real estate?
An autonomous AI landlord optimizing rent collection on-chain.
Precisely.
That is a deep dive for another day. Thank you so much for joining us as we explored these sources. If you want to stay ahead of this rapidly evolving landscape, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter.
Yep, lots more coming.
And we warmly invite you to follow Nifty Noon on X and Substack for all your daily updates. See you next time.